Have you ever wondered what it's like to own your own business? Be your own boss? Welcome to Season 7 of Business Mentorship, Keepin It Real, where we meet with corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and join us as part of the shareyourstoriesonline series. Hello, I'm Trish Tonak, and today we're going to meet a small business owner, celebrate their great idea, and introduce you to the person behind the logo. We invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to the show. Our guest joins us from Vancouver, British Columbia. Dr. Blythe Cleverly is the founder of Fork in the Road Strategies, the thinker's advocate, where critical thinkers discover the tools, insights, and brain-based strategies designed for their unique way of processing the world. With 2 trademark programs, she'll take you through the 7 bridges journey to achieve your goals. Blythe is going to share her story on entrepreneurship and give us a behind-the-scenes look into the life of a small business owner. I'd like to welcome and introduce everyone to Blythe.
Hello, Trish. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, when I was reading your story this morning, one of the things that captivated me was your logo and the name of your business, which is Fork in the Road. So perhaps we can start by you giving our viewing and listening audience a little bit of the behind the scenes into how you came up with that name.
You know, it kind of came to me, and when I thought about different names for my business, I just kept going back to that because really it's when we're at a fork in the road in our lives that we know something needs to change. And, you know, often it's kind of a messy place to be in, but a pivotal one. And the time when you're confused and needing clarity is the time of greatest opportunity as well. So in helping people when they're at that fork in the road, I know that they're going to advance.
You know, that's so true because they come at sort of out of the blue sometimes, right? Where we may not be expecting that, you know, we've got this change or this feeling of change. When you mention that these are brain-based strategies, what does that actually mean for someone who is just being introduced to you as a practitioner? How would you describe brain-based strategies?
It's an understanding that not everybody thinks the same way, and we have different brain types, right? We different neurotypes, and that I only really work with somebody of a very specific type. I call them metacognitive. So they even think about their own thinking. They're highly analytical people, and they have a higher need for direction in certain areas because they have more thoughts. And so they need more skills and tools around those thoughts, right? And so being trained also with the Amen clinics, I've had a firsthand look into what the brains actually look like in the scans and how we all light up very differently according to who we are. And it's just good to know who you are.
You know what I found equally interesting is that you started this journey when you were 15.
I did. Yes. So I knew that I had a different sort of way of thinking or a different brain type. I couldn't define it that way at that time, but why did I think so differently than everybody else? And why did I have so many more thoughts? So I learned that I had to control my mind because otherwise I was not going to have a happy existence.
You know, that's so true. When we control how we think, we then show up differently, correct?
Absolutely. So we show up differently in our own minds and then to the rest of the world.
Right, right. And when we're making those connections, I find that's where we need the clarity, right? When the brain is, I call it the video in your brain, right? Like things are going on at Mach 2 with its hair on fire. And then the next thing you know, you're like sitting in a situation and thinking, wow, I'm kind of like way out in a totally different place. So if you're sitting in a boardroom in a meeting with other colleagues, or even in a sales environment, if you're in, an entrepreneurial environment, one of the tools that you can share that we can use to try to rein in some of those thoughts and stay present in the moment for the conversation?
Mm. Well, the brain and nervous system are linked, right? So
Mhm.
they're one system. And so
Right.
if you can learn to calm down your nervous system by doing some brain hacks or brain neuro tips, then that's very helpful. So if you're in a state of fight or flight, you're not going to be retaining anything in a meeting, in a relationship. Anytime you're not going to be retaining, and your influence is not going to be grounded.
Right.
So knowing how to calm yourself down is also part of that.
As a small business owner, give us a little bit of insight into it because I mean, clearly academia is a big part of your training because you've got a number of significant educational support systems behind you, or you certainly wouldn't have the title of doctor. So, from an academic standpoint, we know you've got all your ducks in a row. As a small business owner,
Mhm.
does that transition between the academia and being a practitioner translate into being a small business owner when you're trying to connect with various different customers?
It's interesting because it's not enough to be really good at what you do, at what you've learned. You
Right.
also have to be good at marketing yourself. So that's been a challenge for me. And, especially since COVID, I've really learned a whole lot about sales and marketing and how to convey my message because I want to get the biggest reach out there to make the biggest difference in the world, right? So
True.
coming about that in a place of still, integrity that feels good, has been a challenge for me. But I think I now understand when I come from the standpoint of service instead of sales.
Oh, that's a really good point because, service actually supersedes the sales, right?
Hmm.
People will find you based on your skills and experience, especially if you're providing a solution to a problem that they have.
Absolutely. Like I did not get start into this business as a business. I started into it as, learning the tools for my own mind.
Right.
And then also in the brain because of the Alzheimer's, the dementia that was in my family. And
Mm.
so I thought, I'm not going to get this disease. I need to do something. And in all of the education that I received, then people started coming to me for help. And so I did not plan to have a business. It was from my own forks in the road that I developed it, right? But then when they kept coming to me, I said, okay, well, I'd better get the rest of my education and I better do this and I better do that and then set up a business. I was kind of a hermit that lived in the woods and people kept coming to me. So I said, I better do something about it.
What I really love is that you've got some trademarks that I think are important because our own intellectual property is something that's unique to us, right? And as small business owners, a lot of times we think, oh, I'm not going to trademark that. It's not that important. But you've spent the time, the energy, and the money in order to do some trademarking. Give us a little bit of insight into how that journey started.
Well, for me, my logo was very important to me. And so the depiction of a person, of a brain, and then diverging right into a fork in the road was really important. And that's morphed a little bit over time, become simplified or changing with my brand colors. But for the most part, it stayed the same since 2009.
That's
So,
great.
hmm.
Building a brand is, I think, one of the most difficult things to do, right? Because when we have a JOB, we have a business card, and that business card goes along with the company that we're affiliated with. And usually those are larger organizations, right? So
Mhm.
we've got the brand identity. Our identity comes from the association with that brand. I can remember being a buyer for a national department store here, and that card had weight, not necessarily me as the person, but
Mhm.
because I had been chosen to represent that organization, then that too gave me some brand identity. How
Mhm.
have you found being an entrepreneur since 2009? How have
Mhm.
you found building your brand as Fork in the Road? Has that helped as a speaker?
It has. So I've spoken at several different locations now, and I've been kind of a speaker all my life in different ways, but I just see that as one-on-one and
Right.
meeting people, with my brand, with fork in the road, with empathy for whatever fork in the road they're at. And that
Right.
can be so many different things for people. It could be a midlife crisis, it could be, a divorce, it could be identity shift. And most of what I do is identity work, really. When I get right down to it, that
Mm.
their identity is changing. When we have a fork in the road, usually there's going to be a shift in identity as well that goes along with that.
That's a really important point because I don't think that we relate these shifts in our life to a change in our identity, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I'm sure you can think back to 2009 when you first so-called hung out your shingle and started your business. You weren't the same person then as you are now,
Not at all.
right? Isn't that the truth? So,
It-
time changes us, but life events change us too.
yes, right. And but there's some people that time doesn't really do that much for. So we have to make a choice and a decision to change,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And so they say time heals all wounds. Sometimes time just goes by for some people. Sometimes there
Yes.
is no growth. It really
Yeah.
depends on whether or not that person takes the different fork in the road, right? Or continues on the same path.
Yeah. Is it a choice? Tell us a little bit about choice because I think that sometimes things are presented and they're right there in front of us, but we can't see the forest for the trees, right? To use
Mhm.
one of the phrases that you've used.
Yes, yes.
Because, right? Because you think, wow, like what's really happening here? So you
Mhm.
can either make a choice to change, or as you say, you can make a choice to stay on the same path.
Yes.
Is that conscious or subconscious?
Well, I think our subconscious brings about a lot of things that
Right.
happen to us, right? And for us.
Right.
So then we have a choice about how we respond or how we react to it.
Right.
Right. So you can stay stuck if you want to. I've seen people that, in the past who stayed stuck right exactly where they were, frozen in time almost. And then people who say, I have to move ahead. So you can either be the victim or you can be the victor. Like those are your two choices. Right. So you move ahead and you say things happened for me for a reason, or you stay stuck and say these things happened to me and I'm a victim of them. And it's always your choice. We have free will.
That's a really interesting point because I don't think we really relate the power of choice as humans. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for the fact that we really do have a lot of choices. I think sometimes when the brain is getting bogged down with too much change, sometimes, as to your point, we feel frozen, right? We're stuck and we
Mhm.
don't know, do we go forward? Do we go backward? Do we move left? Do we move right? What exactly is it that we're supposed to do? And
Mhm.
maybe what we really need to think about is that we have a choice.
Oh yeah, life is one choice after the other.
Mm, very true, right? Very true. Is there a tipping point in your business where you made a significant change? So, you started with folks coming to you and saying, I need your help. Blythe, can you help me? I need some
Mhm.
skills and some tools in order to make that choice, to make the right
Mhm.
choice. Was there a tipping point in your own business where as the entrepreneur you thought, oh wow, here we go. This is another change that's coming. And
Mhm.
because of that, I'm going to move in this direction.
Several, several. So first I see patterns and I saw the pattern that there was a very specific brain type that would come to me and it was like my own. And
Wow.
that we were a minority. And so to coin them and who are we, right? So this metacognitive neurotype, this highly thinking neurotype. And then I realized that nobody else is working with them, very specifically. And we need such specifics. Like we don't want talk therapy. We don't want to circle the story. We want solutions. We need logic. Right, our brain needs those answers. And so that was one thing. And then I realized that oftentimes there's a predisposition towards addiction with this brain type to calm the thoughts, to numb the thoughts.
Wow.
Right. And so then, okay, working with that aspect of it too. And why do we get into that? And it's not necessarily about being sober, it's about being connected. And so understanding that and then realizing that people with this brain type will rise to the top of their field, whatever that field is. They'll be high performing and they'll usually have responsibility and authority. And I thought, this is the person that I need to help the most because they have the widest impact and influence and the most pressure on them. And so that would span from people who were founders, people who were leaders, people who were actors or rock stars or athletes even, which is so I never thought I would be doing that. But as long as they have that brain type, whatever
Right.
fork in the road or situation they're in, I know I can help them. So it was defining, okay, this brain type and all of the different situations they could be in, but mainly of authority and responsibility for greatest impact.
Did you come up with the Seven Bridges journey? Because one of the very impactful images that you have on your website is obviously the bridge. And
Mhm.
I think as humans, those visual connections, we can see, we know that we're at one side and we want to travel to the other.
Yes,
And so the bridge does make a visual connection to, okay, to change really,
it does.
and transformation. How did you come up with the whole entire concept of the Seven Bridges journey?
From working with people, I realized that these were the challenges that people faced. That this is the human existence, the human challenge, Trish, if you will, that we will all cross these bridges in
Right.
our life. They
Right.
are challenges. It's like the waters of change and turbulence within us, and we need to get from one side to the other. And these are the things that we will encounter in life, and we need skill sets for, or we need clarity on. And so when I looked back at the patterns of how I help people, I realized this was the journey. And it just happened to be Seven Bridges, and I just happened to be an Eagles fan. So,
You know, I love the fact that this came actually from your client base, right? Because you saw that there was a pattern of behavior or a pattern in the journey, and you thought, okay, well, clearly everyone's experiencing the same sort of thing. So it gives you some touch points to be able to take them from one place to another.
exactly. It's real world experience. Yes.
Right, right. Which have you found that there's been a change since COVID? You know, I find that a lot of leaders and certainly founders of businesses feel an isolation factor, right? A lot
Mhm.
of us are now, we don't need the bricks and mortar anymore unless we're selling a product. And even a lot of products we can now get online, right? So the bricks and mortar businesses where we're communicating on a daily basis with our customers changed. So have you found that the leaders that you're working with are experiencing things in a different way post COVID?
I think that there's more existential crisis.
Ah,
I think that people are thinking deeper in general.
right.
There's more emotional volatility.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Well, the
so
world seems kind of crazy, right?
So there's more need for skills and tools around all things cognitive and emotional.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Because, do you subscribe to the premise that, there comes a time in the day when the social media's got to go, right? We've got to shut off the devices. We
Mhm.
need to connect with the people in our lives rather than, because we have these awesome tools. Like here we are, we're on opposite ends of the country having this amazing conversation. And
Yes.
without the tools, we wouldn't be able to do that. But at
Right.
some point in time, to your point about the addiction, I think that sometimes we get addicted to the devices.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So everything is like a dopamine hit these days.
So
But
true.
we're exhausting our neurotransmitters. We're exhausting ourselves. We're draining ourselves. We're losing connection,
Hmm.
right? With ourselves and with society in general. But
Right.
AI has wonderful advantages as well, and technology has wonderful advantages. It's a
Yes.
matter of using them appropriately, right?
That's so true. We need to be our own control board, right? We need to be able to put those healthy boundaries in place based on our own skills and experience, and being able to recognize that maybe we're overloaded,
Yes, exactly.
right?
So, yeah, I'm a part of a collective where we're actually writing a book on this right now about a future ready performance playbook, it's called, and it is about human performance and excellence and AI and how to integrate that properly. I'm
Right.
co-authoring that with other authors, including Will Lu Kang. And so that because what you're saying is so relevant, right? People are saying, how do we stay connected? How do we stay human in
Yes.
that age, right?
Do you find there's more disconnection within the places that we live? I mean, sometimes there's a lot of people who are living alone now, right? We have an aging population. So there's lots of folks who find that, I mean, I remember, the days between husbands, we'll say, when, I was up and out the door at 9 o'clock to go and get coffee so I could speak to another human, right? Because I'd been alone with my own thoughts and in my own location since the evening before, when you get home from your hectic day. And then you get up in the morning and you get ready and you think, wow, well, I need somebody to talk to. So going for coffee was a way to make a connection, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's, I think, another reason why we're seeing addiction on the rise since COVID.
Right. Yeah. Because it's sometimes the connections are difficult to find, right? If everybody's in this place of this vortex of change or uncertainty, it doesn't make us very friendly.
Yes,
Right?
it's true. And the world has become, decidedly a little less friendly, a little less neighborly, because neighbors
So
are
true.
quite often aren't agreeing on things. But what we need to do is look for the commonality that we
Right.
have the difference.
Right. Because I think at the root of all of us, as people, we're all looking for the same thing, right? We're looking
Yeah.
for acceptance. We're looking for love. We're looking to be able to maintain a certain standard of living for ourselves and our families. And that may change from person to person, but those basic elements are all the same.
They are. The human need for connection will always be there. Yes.
Right, right, absolutely. Now, one of the things that we do in the guest blog is we talk about 3 words of advice. So I would like you to wrap up our conversation today with our viewing and listening audience, telling them why your 3 words are important to the work with you that you do. And your 3 words are question your thoughts.
Yes. So question your thoughts and question everything, really. But so I've had people come to me with this brain type who are highly, cognitive, and they've been told, you shouldn't question your thoughts. There's no reason to have them. There's nothing you can do about them, and just let them be. And to me, that's really errored. We need
Sure.
to. It's actually not only our right, but our responsibility to question how we're thinking, to
Mhm,
direct ourselves, to go towards self-governance, right? So
mhm,
for me, becoming what I call the mayor of my mind, meant that I had to question my thoughts. If you want a better quality of life, you need a better quality of thinking. And so questioning your thoughts, knowing that you can change your thoughts, you can change your mind, you can change your
mhm.
brain. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And, I love the connection, Blythe. And my biggest takeaway, I think, from our conversation is the power of choice.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
fact that we just need to decide that we have a choice and then find the tools that are going to help us make the right choices.
Yes. Yes.
I want to thank you very much for joining me today and giving us such great insight, not only into the type of business that you're doing, but the practicality in terms of how we can take this journey and make it really practical and pursue the things that we really want to pursue and live our best life. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Trish. I really appreciate this.
To our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for tuning in for this edition of Keeping It Real. And I'd like to send my personal thanks to all of our sponsors and mentors for their ongoing support and ask that you share and invite your friends and colleagues to subscribe to our show, Business Mentorship Keeping It Real, found on YouTube and your favorite podcast channel. Blythe and I would like to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we meet another business owner and celebrate their great idea.